Hi, this is Christy Morrison, your Tahoe Truckee real estate expert. Today I'm with Jan Zabriskie. He is a town council member for the town of Truckee. And I actually voted for you, Jan. I saw you first speak at our Truckee Rotary a couple years back or so, when you were introducing yourselves. Just as you probably know, we just went through, the town council voted on a short-term rental moratorium that is supposedly going to be 45 days, but could be up to 2 years, I believe.
It can only be renewed at 45-day increments. And I suspect it might take one renewal. I'm hoping we can do it within 90 days. You'd have to be very optimistic to think we're going to be able to do it in the first 45 days. Possible, but optimistic. So
when Placer County did their moratorium, as you can imagine, a lot of our buyers canceled their escrows when they found out that they couldn't do short-term rentals with their property. When I heard that actually the town of Truckee was going to do the same thing, of course I was very concerned. A lot of the agents that work for me, including myself, we lost thousands of dollars in our commission just in one day because of that decision. So when I heard that the town of Truckee was doing this, of course I became a little bit more involved and started wondering what was going on with our town. So when at the town council meeting, which is recorded, right? You can go back and you can watch the town council meeting, which is very interesting. There was a wide variety of views during the meeting. And so what was very interesting to me is the bottom line of why the moratorium is existing is because the town and I think in our community in general really needs to look at what are the impacts of short-term rentals, both from workforce housing as well as the nuisances and the effects on our community at large. So Jan is here today to give us his opinion on the what's going on with the views of the town council and the town of Truckee and his own views. So welcome, Jan.
Right, thank you. Yeah, for the views of the other council members, I do recommend that you go to TTC TV, that's our local television network, and go under Town of Truckee and go to the archives, and you can watch the actual town council proceedings. And there were over 100 comments that covered a spectrum of views and hit about just all the pros and cons for whether we should be regulating the number of short-term rentals in some fashion. And my view on it is really directed at getting to the data, the facts that will help us better understand the extent to which, if any, short-term rentals are displacing long-term renters. And I think my second concern is just the impact that short-term rentals have on neighborhoods.
So Jan, explain at the town council meeting, this was news to me and I've been a realtor for a long time, so I'm a little embarrassed I didn't really know this, but Jan, can you explain to us that the short-term renting is not like a vested right of a property owner, that is a license given by the town of Truckee and can be revoked at any time?
The town has the power and the authority to regulate short-term rentals to the point of prohibiting them. Now, I think there could certainly be a legal issue over someone that has acquired a short-term rental permit for a specified duration and the extent to which they're able to rely on that. But certainly the town has the power to prohibit renewals. So the best anyone could hope for once they obtained approval of a permit is they will be able to operate for up to 1 year, which would be, I realize, of great concern to someone who is buying something as expensive as real property with a house on it because they're not going to get a return on their investment in 1 year.
Exactly. So, in terms of your perspective on where do you see short-term rentals playing into taking away workforce housing?
For me, it's an open question. The Mountain Housing Council 2 years ago did a study trying to figure out the extent to which long-term rentals are being converted to short-term rentals, just that narrow scope. And they found, looking at Mammoth Lakes and 2 municipalities in Colorado, that the percentages range from, I believe, 3% in Mammoth Lakes to 23%, I think it was in Crested Butte. So we're seeing a wide range in the data, and we don't know how reliable that data is. That's another issue, how certain we can be even with those numbers. I'm hoping we get a better fix on the extent to which long-term rentals are being displaced by short-term rentals here. Christy has explained very well why that seems unlikely or very limited, which is to the effect we have so many second homeowners here, and they are the ones who will rent out their houses when they're not there, and they can't use their vacation home if they're doing a long-term rental, so they're in a short-term rent. That's the simple explanation for why many people are dubious about short-term rentals displacing long-term rentals.
Well, and as a lot of you out there that are listening, if I've sold a house to you within the last 2 or 3 years, it's been pretty rare that you've decided to long-term rent your property unless you had a major relocation or life change that's going to bring you back here to the area. But for the most part, as most of you out there know, if you've purchased a property in the last few years, that the income it is not high enough to substantiate a long-term rental to help cover your mortgage and your costs. But number 2 is usually the people that that I've sold to you out there. Usually you want to use your property and come up. So it is kind of an interesting point. And most of my investors that are looking for a return, if they're going to do long-term rentals, they'll just invest in Reno or in the Sacramento area that will give them a higher return. But I think also you bring up a really good point too. Not only do we need some clear-cut solutions for workforce housing, which I am 100%, as any business owner here in town,
right.
We need places for our employees to live. Not only that, but we also would like some diversity in our area too. Right. But I think also the one of the main things is like, what kind of community are we looking to build here in Truckee? Right. And what does this composition want to look like? Is it all people that can afford $1 million homes and above, and then the people that can afford to go on vacation? Is that like what our community is going to turn into? Or can we find a balanced approach to having a community of various different incomes and interests and people here?
Christy's pointing out the compounding issues associated with short-term rentals. We're not looking at them in a vacuum, and one of the ironies is as Truckee becomes even more attractive for second homeowners, it increases the need for workforce to help serve food at the restaurants, pump gas for you at a gas station, provide retail services at all of our fine establishments, and we need to be building workforce housing at the same time, which is to say second homeowners have an interest in seeing improved conditions that allow our service industry, service workers to live here.
As a case in point, Sugar Bowl stopped selling season passes because they don't have enough employees right now to operate their mountain, which is kind of a red flag.
Yes.
I think also what was most interested in when I was at the town council meeting is learning about the different incentives that the town of Truckee is now giving to second homeowners and people that would like to long-term rent their property.
Right. One of the first things that second homeowners should be aware of is the town is making it easier and easier for homeowners to build accessory dwelling units, either as attachments to their houses or as standalone structures, so that not only would you be able to short-term rent your house, but you would also be able to rent an accessory dwelling unit where you could have either a second short-term rental, or it could be a long-term rental for someone who can work in town and also keep an eye on your short-term renter. That's one thing. And then there's assistance for home buyers in terms of down payment programs. There are rental assistance programs for renters. We're embarking on a program to establish what we call deed restricted housing, where homeowners can agree to sell their property for a lower amount, and the town will make up the difference between the sales price and what the market price would be in exchange for acquiring a restriction limiting the house to a local worker. You can go to the town's website and just, when you reach that website, do a search for Truckee Town Home Programs.
And we'll have a link below here as well, so you can click on that and see the incentive. I think one of the incentives I've heard is if you do rent to somebody who is going to be a long-term renter, you get $3,000, I think, off right at the beginning or something. So that's amazing too.
That is correct. I forgot about that. That's through Landing Locals, and that program is being expanded. They're actually increasing the subsidy for people who are willing to do that. My next door neighbor's doing that, as a matter of fact.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, Jan, I really appreciate you coming over here and us being able to talk about what's happening with our community. And is there anything you want to add to let our audience know?
No, I just want to thank Christy Morrison for inviting me to be part of this interview. It was a pleasure. Thank you.